as Kennedy turned around and said something. As Dernier sends it deep left field. Going back and looking up is Martinez. It's gone. Cubs lead 1-0.
Dernier not known for his power, but he caught that high fastball good.
Those are good memories. Baseball's winter meetings open a week from tomorrow, but the hot stove already heating up, so we decided to bring in a guy who knows his baseball. Bobby Dernier, who played for the Cubs in the 80s, was on the 84 division winner, and today remains a Cubs ambassador. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here. It's always a pleasure. And I get up here in the winter, as you know, Cub conventions, and not bad, about 35, 38 degrees.
I was going to ask you, how does it feel to be a Cubs ambassador, Bobby? And tell me what your thoughts are on the Ricketts family and how the Ricketts family has actually been good for Cubs fans, has it not?
Yeah, they've been really good. And as a player, I mean, I had the Tribune, you know, owned the club. You really didn't meet anybody. Nobody shook your hand. Nobody came up in the clubhouse. How you doing? And so now, I know as a player, I know the guys love it, and the staff. Everybody does. And they've been great to me, the whole family. And Crane Kenny, Molly Kidd, Mike Lafrano, the whole front office. They really treat us well. And, you know, as a former player, it's kind of like walking out of the corn, really, Lou. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I know that you keep tabs on the Cubs still on a regular basis. You live in Kansas City, so you obviously followed that Royals run to the World Series title. Today, Jordan Zimmerman, pitcher, fine pitcher with the Nationals, signs a $110 million deal. Didn't actually sign, but agreed in principle to a $110 million deal, 5 years with the Detroit Tigers. And Zimmerman was a guy that many people had on their list as far as pitchers that the Cubs should chase this offseason. 3 big arms still left, a number of big arms, but the 3 that I'm going to touch on, David Price, Zach Greinke, John Lackey. When you take into account the money that they'll be looking for, their age, Joe Madden's relationship, obviously, with Price, where do you think the Cubs will target?
Yeah, that last point is probably dead on. I mean, there's obvious relationship there with Price and with Joe. And, you know, Zimmerman I got to see when I was coaching through 2011. I saw him a little bit. Greinke is interesting. I live in KC. I've seen his whole story. The one that's cropped up recently has been maybe the reemergence of Jeff Samardzija in the conversation. And I was obviously around Jeff quite a bit, so I'm a little biased. I kind of like that thought may be in play. Jeff's a winning type person and player, as we know, and we'll see how Theo, you know, that gang, Jed, those guys, these decisions are in good hands.
Well, you know, that being said, have you got any kind of vibe out of the clubhouse which way they're going to go on this?
Well, it's, you know, that's why we have meetings and every winter. And I've been to one of those as a player, and it's you really have to kind of let it all fall out. Right now, Greinke's the big guy, I think, and Price. And once they domino, and it could be, you know, there's right now there's no grand plan in my mailbox that they've mailed me, but I trust these guys. I kind of like what I've seen, and it'll be interesting. We'll see.
You played center field. Dexter Fowler turned down the Cubs' $16 million qualifying offer. That's a tough position to fill, isn't it, as a leadoff hitter? I mean, you were the leadoff hitter for that 84 squad.
It's a dual role, and I can say I like Dexter. My main thing there is, you know, he scored 100-plus runs, and that's check mark. That's the kind of leadoff hitter you need.
You know, you live in Kansas City. Do you see any similarities between today's Cubs and the Kansas City Royals world champions?
Well, it's development and bringing a lot of young guys up together. That's similar. You know, the Canes and the Gordons and Escobars and that bunch, they came as a group or within a year or two, and that's kind of what we're witnessing here. One thing the Royals do well is they catch the ball, and I know the Cubs have that on their list. We've got to play a little more sound defense, and you guys know as well as I do, if your pitching's good and you're not catching the ball, then you got an unhappy clubhouse. So let's start with those two things, pitching and catch it.
All right, last question. Would you be surprised if this team didn't move further in the playoffs come next year? Number one, do you think they're a playoff team again?
Oh, no doubt. Going into the season, and we all know health's a big, you know, it's always the common denominator. Teams that win stay healthy. And if we can have that happen, these guys developed this year. Chris Bryant, you know, and Rizzo's I love having that big sweaty left-handed hitter in the middle of the lineup, and I like what I see.
All right, Bobby, thanks for coming on out. Good to see you.
You bet. Thanks for having me.